Aside from Terry Bussey, what freshman could we see have a significant role for Texas A&M next season?
You are Locked On Aggies, your daily podcast on the Texas A&M Aggies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On Aggies. I'm your host, Andrew Stefaniak. Thanks for making Locked On Aggies your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets. If your first bet of $5 or more wins, visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've talked about which transfers are going to be involved. We've talked about all that, players who are going to take a leap this year, the players from last year's recruiting class that are going to, what kind of role they're going to have this year. But we haven't talked a ton about this freshman class and who's going to get involved when it comes to those guys. And, I wanted to add the caveat when we got rocking and rolling here, aside from Terry Bussey. We know that Terry Bussey is going to play a role this year. We're not going to spend long talking about him. You're going to see him on the field in some capacity, whether it's in some way on offense, likely at corner, returning kicks, whatever it is, you're going to see him on the field a good amount. So the question is, what other guys could we see get on the field? And those of you everydayers here at Locked On Aggies know that I'm not a huge fan of freshmen getting involved at certain positions. Offensive line, defensive line are the top two. After that, I'd probably say linebacker. And then probably quarterback. Those are the four positions. I mean, running back, I'm fine with it. Secondary, I'm okay with it. I can live with it there. I think the more in receiver, I think the more instinctual positions and the positions that take less brute strength and more technique. Because I just think by this point, when you're already at a Division I college, an SEC school, you've kind of already built that technique. Is kind of what I'm getting at here. So, that's kind of my thought there. But so I mean, the wide receivers, that's a room. It's a room, ladies and gentlemen, that like I like the upside of it, but I don't even know. I don't know if I'd go as far to say it's a concern, but I do think I would go as far as to say it's a position that I'm paying a lot of attention to heading into spring and then heading into the summer. So, could you see a Ashton Bethel Roman get involved? Could you see what's the other kid's name I'm blanking on now? Isaiah Williams, the late edition. Both of them were. Could you see those guys get involved? They're both talented. Isaiah Williams, composite rankings wise, is he's 245th nationally, and then Ashton Bethel Roman is as high as he's ranked 134th in 24/7 Sports composite ranking, or in their rankings. Then in the composite rankings, he's ranked 228th. Speaking of a little bit of recruiting, I want to say this before we move on. On Friday, I'll be joined by Brian Smith, our Locked On recruiting expert. I'll record that with him later this afternoon today on Thursday, and then you'll see it tomorrow morning, Friday. So a lot of recruiting news to break down there. Going to be a fun episode. Wanted to let y'all know that now. But those two receivers, I think they're both pretty talented, and I like the videotape on them. I mean, once again, I don't think any freshman aside from Terry Bussey it stands off the sheet like that guy's for sure going to start. There's no question that dude's starting. End of story. I don't know if I'd go that far, but there are some guys at some positions that, like, it was kind of funny. Last year with Javon Thomas, I would have never imagined he cracked the starting lineup. And then what happened? His name kind of just heated up. Same with York. I mean, it's just this stuff's going to happen. You're going to have freshmen that maybe we're not expecting work their way, and they're being talked about as a potential starter. So it's going to happen. But right now, which names those are, I don't know if those were. And I'm not saying that these. I'm talking about role players, not starters. Like, are these receivers going to start? No. But could they play some snaps? Yes. Could injuries launch them into the lineup? Of course. The next position is these linebackers. Now, it's like, I feel pretty good. Obviously, we know who you got in York. I feel pretty good about, like, Alex Howard, the transfer. There's some names. There's some dudes that I'd be fine with playing. But I'm really high on Tristan Jernigan. Y'all know I love him. He's ranked. And y'all know how I feel about the rankings on 24/7 Sports. They are not high enough, or none of the outlets are on Tristan Jernigan. I would say for where he's ranked, he is. I just feel so good about Tristan Jernigan. I think he's gonna be an incredible player. So I'm really excited to see what he ends up turning into. I think he's going to be a star. I think giving the York comparison is tough because it's really hard to do what he did last year. But this kid, if I was going to give you one from the linebacker class, it would be Jernigan. I'm really excited about him. Alabama made a late push. Now, obviously, that was when Saban was still there, but made a late push, and Texas A&M was able to hold on, so that was huge. So Jernigan would be the next guy that I would not be surprised to see him have a role. I think he's talented. 6'2", 220. I think he's got the frame needed to come in and play. Like, let's see what frame we got here for Alex Howard listed. 6'2", 230. So, he's not that far off a veteran Division I linebacker, so could he come in and take that role? I wouldn't. That's the one guy. If Tristan Jernigan somehow manages to earn a starting role, that would not surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me not one bit. So linebackers, and then defensive line, this is the position I do not like young guys getting involved on the defensive line. I really don't. It's kind of like we saw, like even last year with DJ Hicks. He'll be more involved coming up. But like last year, he was one of the best players in the class, and you didn't see him on the field a ton. So it'll be interesting to see what he does when it comes to getting involved. What some of these true freshmen do when it comes to getting involved. Does Kendall Jackson get involved, or does Dalen Evans get involved, or do you see Solomon Williams doing some stuff? This is what I'm saying. It'll be interesting to see what those guys do role-wise. These defensive linemen are talented, but once again, that's a position where it's going to take some real convincing for me to be like, okay, those guys can start. I'm in. Works for me. It's going to take some convincing there. I don't know how I feel about it. But I think they're talented, and if they were launched into having to play a role or somehow start, I think that they could do fine. I think they would have to, get developed to college football, get developed to the speed, get stronger. That's the key. You have to be SEC strong, and just a lot of players that get there aren't. Some are, some aren't. And that's the difference between a guy who can play as a freshman and the guy who can't. So this is these freshmen's opportunity right now, these next months to get themselves ready to potentially play right now. And then the last position I have here is the safeties. Jordan Pride, Miles Davis. Could you see those guys? I think they're both really good. I think you're going to see both of them on the field. Very potentially sophomore year. I think they're that good. Like, I'm very excited about those two. Could it be this year? Maybe they start the year with not much of a role, but injuries happen or poor play happens. They could be launched into a role. Those would be the guys. That's another position that I wouldn't be crazy surprised if they walked into a role. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, that's really what I've got here position wise. Like, I'm not out here saying that some of the young linemen, Ivy or Funk, are going to work themselves in. I just think it's tough. It's just tough. those offensive linemen are going to crack the lineup, I think, as sophomores, definitely as juniors. But as freshmen, it's just hard at that position. So that's kind of my guys I think you could see starting. I mean, not starting, playing a role. I think the only one that I feel confident you could. Whoops, that was funny. I actually pressed the button. I think the only one that I do feel confident you could see start is Terry Bussey. And then the rest of these guys, I think they could just have a role, But when it comes to starters, and once again, something will happen. Some crazy starter will get launched out there. That's going to happen. It always happens. But as of right now, who it's going to be, aside from a Terry Bussey, is going to be very interesting and one of the narratives heading into the summer and all that different stuff there. With us starting to do the recruiting on Friday, we're going to start doing mailbag on Thursday. So I got a ton of questions here about the baseball team, a couple about the football team, and one basketball question coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our wonderful friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. So moving into some mailbag questions here. First question is, it's funny, I have so many baseball questions. Like everybody, which is great. I just love to. It makes me giddy to sit here and get talked about baseball. But the first question is just flat out, how good can this baseball team be? I felt pretty confident saying this ahead of the season. But now that I've seen the Aggies play 4 games, I feel very confident. I mean, this team could win the national championship. There's no question, in all honesty, to me. There's no question that this team can win a national championship. They're that talented. They have that much depth in the bullpen, starting arms, at the plate. I mean, this team really can do it all. They can hit, they can field it, they can throw it, they can field it. They can do everything you need to do on the baseball field. I mean, this is a top 10 team in college baseball. There's no debating this, in all honesty. This team, the ceiling is a national championship. It's very, very simple. That's how good these guys can be. I'm very high on this team, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, and to me, someone who's been around baseball his whole life, you can see. For those who want to say, well, and I'm not saying anyone's going to be negative, because I haven't seen any negativity surrounding the baseball team. But for those that might say, well, the opponents haven't been all that great. Okay, that's fair. I can live with that. But I would add that, I just think when you watch a baseball team, there are just the little details that you can see that the opponent just doesn't really matter. I mean, if you're turning on pitches, if you're seeing different hitting speeds at the plate, if the pitchers are throwing great stuff, I could tell, okay, that pitch would have gotten an SEC hitter out. And that's what we're seeing from this staff. That pitch would have gotten an SEC hitter to roll over. That pitch you could see an SEC hitter swinging through. That is kind of stuff you can see those. That was a 94-mile-per-hour fastball that Lavalette just turned around and barreled up. You can see these things, and while it might not be Florida or Vandy, you know what I mean? It's a Division I baseball team. In baseball, there's just so much talent at all. There's talent at every level of college baseball, whether it's JUCO, NAIA. There's talent all over. So seeing the talent that like on these smaller schools, I'm not out here going, well, it was a small school. Is Texas A&M going to be okay when it comes to these better schools? Yes, they're going to be just fine. I promise you, this team is extremely talented, and the ceiling is holding up a trophy in Omaha. It's very simple. That is the ceiling of this team. The next question I got here is, will the basketball team make the NCAA tournament? This one, it's pretty right at the point, and I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, once again, now to be a little negative, and I hate to be that way, but I just don't. I don't think so. I don't. The way that now they've got these games left. You got Tennessee coming up. We'll preview that game here in a little bit. We will preview that on Friday. Once again, with that being our recruiting episode, I'm kind of moving those Friday festivities up to today. I just don't. I don't see this team winning in Knoxville. Now, I don't think you have to win in Knoxville. Let's go through the remaining games here. You've still got to go to Knoxville on Saturday. You've got to host South Carolina, who will, likely fall out of the rankings. Didn't they lose midweek? I think so. But host South Carolina. You got to go to Georgia. I don't think Georgia's very good, but it's hard to say Texas A&M is very good right now. So going to Georgia, I think it's pretty evenly matched game. You have to host Mississippi State, and then you have to go to Ole Miss. Legitimately, Texas A&M, I do not think they're going to win in Knoxville. Now, we'll break it down. I'll give you my, hey, here's what they have to do to win in Knoxville, but I don't foresee that happening. I think if you lose that game, you have to, so what is it 5? Are we 5-7 now? 6-7, excuse me, 6-7. So, I think you need to win. You have to have, to give yourself a shot, you got to be 9-9 in SEC play. And you're 6-7 right now. So if you lose to Tennessee and Knoxville, you're 6-8. So with 5 games left, I think you have to win. You have to win 3 of them. Here's the deal: you have to win 3 of them. You have to go 3-2 in these games to give yourself a chance to make the tournament. And in all honesty, all of these games are losable. So I don't think Texas A&M makes the NCAA tournament unless they do something to utterly shock me. If they go 4-1 down the stretch, and go 10-8, which is also possible. Once again, at Ole Miss, at Georgia, Mississippi State, those are winnable games. They're very even matched games, but they're winnable. Maybe if the 3s start falling, you never know. I'm not saying that's likely, but yes, I don't think this team makes the NCAA tournament. I do not. So next baseball question is, what are the SEC? Which 3 SEC series, or just which I have 3? Which SEC series concern me the most? So in no certain order, it's at Florida, at South Carolina, at LSU. If I had to rank an order, I'd probably say at LSU, then at Florida, then at South Carolina. All of them are good teams. Hate playing away. Don't like playing away. Now in baseball, I'll be honest with you. I played a lot of sports growing up. I played football on the road. Now this football was in high school, obviously. Played hockey up until high school and played baseball through college. And away crowds in baseball, they just don't get to me as much. Now, this is very different from a small, NAIA school or in all honesty, there was more attendance at my baseball games my senior year of high school than most of college. But, the heck, that stuff in baseball, I just don't think it gets to you. I just really don't. I think that, when you're out there on the field, when you're on the mound or at the plate, you're just so dialed in. I don't think that you're thinking about it. I think that, and a lot of the times, the fans are behind you, on the basketball court. If you're dribbling up the court and the student section's behind the rim, you got to, that stuff can get in your head. In baseball, a lot of times people are behind you. So you're looking at the pitcher, you're dialed in. I just don't. So baseball, away environments aren't as important to me, but I still would rather play at home, of course. So I think those are the series that concern me the most. We all know what LSU is. We know who Florida is, and South Carolina, I think, is a solid team. So those are my 3 most concerning series. Next couple questions. One I really like. So biggest concern for 2024 for the football team, for me, it's pretty simple. It's offensive line. If you want to hear me talk more about that, I did an episode about that a couple weeks ago. And then someone asked me to give the betting odds for, in my opinion, for which quarterback is going to start for Texas A&M. This is a fun one. So I have Connor Rigman at minus 300, Jalen Henderson at plus 200, and then Marcel Reed at plus 450. I think you could maybe make Reed and Henderson more kind of closer, but that was a fun thing to think about. You know what I mean? That was a fun question. So I enjoyed kind of drawing those numbers up in my head. But those are some good questions. Once again, continue to comment questions. If you leave a question in the comment, like I said, I bookmark them and I'll answer them here on Thursdays. So keep leaving those. I appreciate it. And also, I've got a handful of recruits I'm going to talk about on the show with Brian tomorrow. I should have said this earlier in the week, but leave some comments on some recruits you want to hear about, and we'll talk about them. So leave those comments as well, and we'll talk about them on next Friday's recruiting episode. We're going to talk about the matchup with Tennessee and what can Texas A&M, if anything, do to win this basketball game. We'll have that conversation coming up right here on Locked On Aggies. But first, I want to tell you about our friends over at FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and a ton more. FanDuel is the place I go when I'm betting on sports. It is a ton of fun. It is the best place to do it. I highly recommend it. Go check it out. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and shoot your shot. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA and the Locked On Podcast Network. So, of course, Texas A&M beat Tennessee in College Station, in Reed Arena. So now you have to go to Knoxville. And I think this is a pretty good Tennessee team, ladies and gentlemen. In all honesty, I really do. I think it's. I mean, I don't have to sit here and defend that take. We all know they're a good team, but I think that if Texas A&M is going to win this game, first thing they have to do is make their free throws. Texas A&M's done a good job of getting to the line, but when you get to the line and you're not making them, who cares? You got to make your free throws. It's not. If for lack of better words, it's really not rocket science. You have got to make your free throws. It's very, very simple to me. So that's extremely frustrating. You got to make your free throws. I think that they need to flat out shoot the ball better. You have to shoot the basketball better. That frustrates me a ton. Continually seeing this team not be able to shoot it from deep. I don't know if I see that changing. Like I've said, Wade needs to be more efficient. He's got to start hitting shots. Yeah, he's averaging 20 points a game or whatever, but he's shooting the ball 23 times a game and making 7 field. You know what I mean? Like you got to start being more efficient from the field. Same with Boots. In all honesty, I think Boots has been more efficient overall than Wade, but still, I think you got to see that happen. And I think that you have to get, so another thing, get others involved. Can we, let's not have the offense be one of those two guys dribble in circles until they either jack up a three or find a way to try and draw. Let's get other players involved. Let's kick the ball out. Let's feed it down low. Let's find ways to get other players involved. So, I have make someone other than Connect Beach. Tennessee is a very talented basketball team with a ton of guys who can kill you. So, try and take Connect out of the ball game. It's going to be hard, especially at home. But if you can get him out of the ball game and you can make those other guys beat you. Now, once again, Tennessee is full of talent. Adu and Vescovi and Zakai Ziegler. They're a very talented team. But if you can take Connect out, what I'm saying is, so sometimes that isn't a winning recipe because they just have other guys who are going to hurt you. But That's what I would do here. The next thing I got here is play like you have to win this game. Play like you have to have it. I mean, here's the deal. I didn't think they were going to beat Tennessee at home, and they found a way to do it. And that kind of like, oh, we're back. Come on, here we go. You win this game, I will completely change my tone on this team making the NCAA tournament. Seriously, because then I think you have to go 2-2 in your next 4 games, and you're in. So, I mean, play like you have to have this game. Seriously, if you find a way to win it, I think you're going to make the NCAA tournament. So play like you have to have it. It's a pretty simple concept to me. So, I mean, and if play like your hair's on fire, you got to have this game. If you're going to make the NCAA tournament, you got to win this one. Play that way. You never know. Maybe you play that way. You out desperate them, you outplay them, and you can find a way to win a game you really should not. And like it's not a must-win game. Knowing that, I do think you'd have to go 3-1 after this to make the NCAA tournament. So it's a huge game, but it's not a must-win to make the NCAA tournament. But if you, as I just said, if you do find a way to win, you are really giving yourself a good shot here to make the NCAA tournament. So play like that. Play like your season depends on this game. That is going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here every single day. Like I always say, I really do appreciate it. On Friday, we will have a recruiting episode with Locked On recruiting expert Brian Smith. Going to be a ton of fun. Recording that later today for y'all on the morning tomorrow. Breaking down, full breakdown of Texas A&M recruiting for the 2025 class. We'll also talk about recent Texas A&M commit, the running back. So lots of fun coming up on that episode. That's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Aggies. Thank you all so much for being here. Like I said, every single day. Have a great rest of your day today, and we will see you tomorrow.